Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Client Engagement at a Turning Point webinar hosted by ClearPath Analysis in partnership with SimCorp. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. For those I haven't had the pleasure of meeting before, I'm Noel Hillman, the Chief Executive for ClearPath, and I'm going to be moderating today's debate. Before we get into today's proceedings, I'd like to take a moment just to talk you through some of the functionality of this Zoom webinar. You'll notice that there are two functions, Q&A and chat function, that you can operate. Shortly, the questions for today's webinar will be posted in one by one as we go through the debate with our panelists. So do look to the chat function if you want to keep track of where we are on the questions for the debate. You can also post in there any of your comments, so please do go ahead and comment on what you're hearing, what you're watching as we go. Any questions that you have, please do look to the Q&A box, as that will enable you to put forward your questions, which I'll be putting to the panelists in between the set questions that we have for today. So as we get started in today's event, we're going to have three polls. They'll pop up onto your screen. If you select the answer, then you'll be able to minimize the screen at that point. And then when we come to share the results again, the poll will come back up onto the screen for you, so you won't be missing out. If at any point you have any technical issues, then the best thing to do first of all is just check your internet connection and just make sure that it hasn't jumped from one wireless router to another, or there's not a problem with the Ethernet cable. If that doesn't solve the issue, then the best course of action normally is to come out of the webinar and then come back in and just allow the connection to reset itself. I think we're all used to some of these internet issues, having been in the environment that we're in as of now. So that's all from me in the way of introductions. I'm going to shortly bring on our panelists for today's debate. So we have joining us Hilda Tingle, Global Head of Digital Marketing with BNP Paribas Asset Management. We've got Ian Rees, Product Managing Director with SimCorp, and then Paul Symphonot, Senior Analyst with AT Group. So if you bear with me, I'll just bring them up on screen now. Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much. Welcome to our panelists to join us today. So as I say, we have a poll to kick us off. So please do look to the poll now that will be coming up onto your screen. You'll see that appearing now. So I'll get into the debate at this point with our panelists. So just bear me 2 seconds. Fantastic. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so the first question that we have here, and I'll be starting with Paul. Paul, a recent survey by AT found that the investment management industry is lagging behind other industries when it comes to digital innovation in client communications. Why do you think this is the case, and what may challenge this?
Thanks, Noel. In terms of a quick introduction for everyone, IT Group is a research advisory firm focused on operations and technology for financial services. I sit in the buy side research team, and we been covering client reporting communications since the firm's founding over 16 years ago. And I would like to say probably I think the last 2-3 years, at least, I think there's been a changing mindset, at least with some firms when it comes to kind of investment in digital communications. I know that SimCorp, have a similar view, and had commissioned us to canvas the asset management universe to understand what the future holds for client communications, and also looking at client service and client engagement. Especially in the context of where we are now with COVID-19 and everyone working from a remote environment. So we wanted to see whether these trends are accelerated that we were seeing. I know the report has just been launched or will be launched, so please look out for that. In terms of the main results to kind of your question, I think a lot of firms have taken a traditional approach to kind of client reporting, client communications. They look at it as a very much operational challenge and operational task. And, in the context of COVID-19, we see that most firms have managed to work within that remote environment with no real change in periodic reporting cycles when it comes to the traditional reporting. But what they have seen is the spike in those ad hoc type requests coming through, especially during March and April last year. And in terms of challenges, We saw that keeping up with that demand, right, had been a challenge to ensure that scalability across all the different clients. And also, in terms of the number of strategies that are being launched right now across the industry, whether that's, different types of instruments, vehicles, asset classes, and obviously the data demands that come along with that. So we do see a lot of challenges that the industry faces. But when it comes to kind of planning for the future and their digital strategy, we definitely see, or I posit anyway, kind of the industry kind of diverging a little bit, where we have a number of leaders in the asset management community who are really looking at the other industries out there, for example, within the retail space or the banking space, and they're seeing how clients are being put first when it comes to the engagement with the service provider. And they're investing. They see it as multi-year projects, but they have begun and have made quite significant strides. One asset manager has gone so far as says they want to be the Amazon and Facebook of client service when it comes to the investment management industry. So those are kind of the benchmarks that have been laid down. And I think in terms of the expectations of the client base themselves, the retail institutional clients, some of these leaders have commented that the experiences that we have in our B2C relationships, like I said, with our banks and our retail kind of shops and so on that we use on a daily basis, it's going to be reflected in our B2B relationships. So starting to creep in a little bit with institutional client demands and the client experience and client benchmarking really. So expect that to have an influence. But yeah, like I said, we talked about the leaders, and then there's also this big group of laggards, I would say, and who are at varying stages, all with their kind of, I guess, either are still struggling with their traditional operations when it comes to client reporting and struggling to scale, or even, or have not decided to invest in a digital, kind of interactive digital communications strategy because of various reasons, which we'll probably go into as we go into the following debate, the questions. But that's kind of a summary of what we found, and we're obviously looking to go into some of those maybe people who might be skeptical of investing in this area, and try to convince them as we go on.
Wonderful. Thank you very much there, Paul. Hilda, good morning to you. So your thoughts here on this question of why do you think it's the case that the investment management industry has been somewhat challenged when it comes to digital innovation in client communications?
Oh, thanks, Noel, and thanks, Paul. So as a B2B business, investment management has always been face-to-face and has always been about, people engagement. It has a rather long sales cycle that could last a year. So when you combine that with a heavily regulated environment, it makes us move a lot more cautiously overall. And everything that we do prudently, with scrutiny, carefully. There's always been this culture in investment management. I think the other aspect is that, the industry has been built on relationships, the know-how of our salespeople, roadshows, networking, people they know, things they hear about. So, but, as Paul said, what's really changed in the last year, and that's really kind of tipped us, is no one predicted the pandemic. And it's really put every asset manager into reactive mode immediately. And so, when you think back of last year, every asset manager was probably thinking about three things. What do I communicate to my clients? Should I be looking at reallocating assets? How should I communicate to clients? So for the first time, and this is not just sales, but marketing, client service, investment professionals, we've all had to think digitally. And, I'm sure many of you will agree, you've been getting more emails since March of last year, more virtual events to attend to, more things to read, listen, watch, and, all of those things. But to be fair to the investment management sector, things were already changing, and firms were already catching up. And so many digital innovation projects that were in the pipeline were accelerated last year. So, if we were thinking about how we distributed reports, we were thinking about, automated distribution of them, automation of client communication. We were looking at, Firms are looking at AI technologies. They were looking at how to use mobile devices. So there were a lot of things that were, the investment management sector were thinking of, but suddenly, we've thought about them a lot more and accelerated these projects.
Thank you very much there, Hilda. Ian, last but not least, your thoughts here. Why is it that the investment management industry has lagged behind other industries when it comes to digital innovation and client communications?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I think Paul and Hilda have done a very good job of covering the main bases there. I think I'd just kind of emphasize some of those points, and particularly some of the human interactions being so central to a lot of the way that servicing and sales have been done in the industry, and digital tools have often been seen as a way to supplant some of those relationships potentially, and a way to kind of remove some of the human interactions from the way that we service clients and give them the information that they want. So there's been a lot of fear kind of in the past anyway of going down these digital routes and losing those potential touch points. And I think that's something that we within the vendor space need to be doing more to kind of focus on and say, look, it's not removing that touch point. What this is doing is augmenting it, giving you more information, more access, a more customized experience to your end users that you can then use to kind of support your ongoing day-to-day activities. So I think that's been that's a key thing that Hilda touched on. And then from the other side of things, I think one of the other things that came across from the study was a lot of people are still worried about kind of a lack of client demand for this kind of for these kind of tools, and they're not seeing those tools the demand for that come through from the client base. And I think that is kind of pushing people away from this and being early adopters. So I think we have to kind of find ways to start to get more, to understand our clients better, understand what they need more, and maybe start to kind of show them more of the possibilities that are available from these kind of digital tools.
Excellent, thank you very much there, Ian. So we've got in 36 results here for the survey so far. I'm just going to share them with you. So we've got a good cross section of views coming on to the polls. So under the question, how has traditional client reporting infrastructure been challenged? So meeting demands for ad hoc requests outside of traditional reporting cycles comes out at the top level, just not far behind it, lack of automation and data quality control. So 36% for the top answer, but almost 1/3 see lack of automation and data quality control there. Paul, I'll come to yourself just on your thoughts to this question. What's your thoughts on the answers here?
Yeah, I think it's very close to our results that we had. We spoke to the 23 asset managers, so that's a little bit more. But I think, there are different issues there. First, obviously, it's the output, right? The consequences of not having a good data infrastructure in place, not having the ability to self-serve clients, all those issues lead to, making it hard to respond to ad hoc requests, right? If you have to get data from multiple systems, you have to talk to different people, you have to do some reconciliations, where it's hard to have instant access, right? Then it makes it hard to scale and deliver those kind of ad hoc requests. Not surprising. So that data is the underlying issue, but obviously, I guess you also have to be able to distribute that. So I think it's really much, in line with what we found. 65% of the asset managers we spoke to said they have some structural issues when it comes to kind of client reporting. Maybe clients are not aware of what goes on underneath, what happens, when they make a request. But, day to day, lots of firms do struggle to meet both the demand for periodic reporting as well as ad hoc reporting. So this is why I think, we do posit in the study that, there's some clients who are happy to self-serve. We're not saying all clients, right? They want information when they want it. And if they can just go get it themselves in, 5 minutes, rather than having to wait for a client service representative to, sometimes they have a 24-hour requirement to respond or 48-hour, maybe you need the answer now. So again, it's about catering to all those needs rather than, trying to, replace personal relationships. So I think that's what we're kind of interpret from those challenges there.
Excellent. Thank you very much there, Paul. Hilda, I see you nodding. Your thoughts on these responses as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would have picked that one if I could answer that poll. Absolutely. If you think of technology, where it's at now, integrating isn't such a problem. We're using APIs and that sort of thing, but it's really, the meeting the custom sort of, this is what I want out of my report, individually. But also think about it from the perspective that it's not just the client, but imagine if client service themselves could do that, right? So if a client wants special service and they want client service to be able to deliver a custom report to them, the client service person doesn't need to put everything together manually. Imagine if they could do that quickly as well and build custom reports for their clients, quickly at a click of a button. And so it goes both ways. So it's a combination of self-service for the clients who want that, but also for our client service teams, for our sales teams, or client support team, if they want to be able to do it, they should be able to do it quickly and build custom reports for their clients.
Great. And then Ian, your thoughts, having taken in what Paul and Hilda have to say on these results?
Yeah, I mean, this chimes with everything that we're hearing from our customers as well. It's how do we get more automation into the data processes? How do we get better data feeds coming through? How do we clean that data, ensure that it's accurate, and then get it out to customers quickly and easily? But then also have the customization capabilities to deliver them in the right way. So I'm just echoing what they've said, that it's really the challenges that we're facing at the moment. And there are ways, I think, with digital technology nowadays to try and answer some of those concerns and put more control in the hands of clients, which I think we'll come on to shortly.
Excellent. Thank you very much there, Ian. We have had a question in already, so thank you very much for that. To remind everyone else, the Q&A function is there, so please do use it to put in the questions that you have. Hilda, I may just ask this question to you, if I may, at this point, because I think it's very pertinent to that first question before we come to the second one on the topic of how we can make client engagement more compelling. Do you think that client demand is not there because investment managers are not really asking the right questions when it comes to digital innovation in client communications?
I think that, we face the same question, same sort of, dilemma. If you ask a type of client, they're going to say, well, I don't need it because I'm okay with the way I'm doing things. Or if you ask a different type of client and they'll say, well, I absolutely need it because it makes my job easier. So I think it's a balance, of the two, right? So we're not saying digital needs to replace everything. We're saying that let's offer a range of different types of solutions for our different tiers of clients, different types of clients. So it's really sort of a balance of both. And then if you also think about what's happened in other industries like retail banking, right? Everyone wanted to keep the checkbook, but it's eventually phased out. So it's also a changing of behavior, and we know that that takes time. And so I think as asset managers, we need to understand that feedback, and we need to sort of balance it out, and we need to kind of prioritize. What are the things that will benefit our client or the largest group of clients? What's going to solve a particular problem?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, we'll come to our second question. And Hilda, actually, I will be starting with you on this one. So how can digital client engagement deliver a more compelling client experience and drive client retention and client acquisition?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just carrying on from what I've just kind of talked about, it's what's interesting is that it's not always companies that drive change, right? But change is really driven by the client themselves. And you think of where we were last year and today, our client base is changing, right? There are millennials, Gen Y, Gen Z, and in another decade we'll have to be preparing for the alpha generation. So these are the sort of the new always connected client. So we need to reimagine the client journey. And I'm sure this is true of every sort of asset management firm, right? We're always about putting the client first. And so this sort of new digitally conscious client moves between the physical and digital worlds seamlessly. So we need to sort of think about the phygital world. What are we looking at? So acquisition, fueled again, from the pandemic last year, we've had to sort of rethink, how we do acquisition. We're looking at, social selling techniques for our sales teams, for marketing teams. We've been looking at, data-driven marketing strategies, using email marketing a lot more. For retention, client service teams, they're not just about being reactive, but also being proactive in the way that we help our clients. So whether they're using social media, communities, or client portals now as part of the ecosystem. So we've really need to kind of think through very carefully, between the entire client journey, how we service them, whether it's a sales function or a marketing function or a client service function. All of it's important, and it's just picking the right tools, picking the right type of service. Combination of digital and physical. It's a total sort of omni-channel experience that we need to be looking at.
Wonderful, thank you. Ian, if I may come to yourself second on this question around how can digital client engagement deliver a more compelling client experience and drive client retention and acquisition?
Yeah, I think Hilda's right, and I think kind of building on that a little bit, you can really kind of think about how how do these journeys really become more personalized, and how do we kind of focus more on the individuals in the way that we're communicating with them? That the digital really opens up than that the analog world wasn't quite so good at being able to do, giving people tools where they can investigate things themselves, where they can maybe play with their portfolio allocation, maybe look at new products, explore the product range that you're making available to them, and then use that information and that insight that you're getting from what they're doing to be able to more effectively target them, talk to them about their concerns a little bit more effectively, and just really build an analytics database off the back of this that really helps you understand your client base, both at an individual level, understanding priorities for particular individuals within the organizations, but also, within your client base, but also then looking at the kind of the more broader macro, if you will, kind of movements across the client base. Where are people focusing their investments more? What are their interests more? Making sure you've got the materials and the products to respond to those different needs and those different interests. That's something that digital can really help you provide and give you that more longer term view, and that the data to back up the different decisions that you might be making as an organization.
Thank you very much. Paul, your thoughts on this? And I see we've had a comment come in from Richard DeRouge on the chat. Thank you very much, Richard, for that. I'll come to your question in a second. Any further questions that anyone has, please do put them into the Q&A so we can organise them there. Paul, your thoughts here on how can digital client engagement deliver a more compelling client experience and drive client retention and engagement acquisition?
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Noel. I think this is probably a good time to go into one of the, assumptions held by those who are not kind of investing in kind of things like interactive digital portals, which is obviously the low usage rates of existing portals is a benchmark to determine how effective and how compelling the client experience can be moving forward. Obviously, a lot of the portals that I spoke to asset managers, and all the portals that have tend to be limited in nature, right? They're document storage, where you would just go to get a PDF rather than being sent a PDF directly. So that obviously is not really a compelling offering, right? Why would I waste my time going to this if it's just to download documents that might be my email already? So obviously it's about creating, functionality and experiences that make it worthwhile. That could be obviously a lot more information that's on the portal, whether that's kind of holdings, whether that's further analytics, whether that's commentary from the portfolio manager there, whether that's a messaging capability to speak to someone, whether that's interesting thought leadership that's also there. You could do a lot of things with a portal. Some people have said, we can integrate client surveys on the portal, right, to understand how they're feeling about certain, people within their relationship, the portfolio specialists, the information that been sent. So you're kind of integrating both the feedback loop as well as the experience together. So you'll have to do it all in one location. And I spoke to some managers who are also looking at widening what a portal can do, right? So obviously we talked about client reporting and client communications, but in terms of the client life cycle, kind of Hilda kind of mentioned this. You can also look at, okay, what else can I do? Maybe you can do some onboarding, right, of clients on that portal as well. Maybe, in terms of AML checks and KYC, again, uploading stuff that maybe that's operational, right? But and if you can do it in an easy way, an automated way, for the client, then they can just go to one place and do everything and get all the information they want. And it's a lot more kind of, there's one kind of digital touch point, like I said, right? And you might want to integrate the CRM data in there as well. And there's a lot of stuff you can do to make it much more compelling. Right now, the industries, the portals, on the most part, have been lacking. All right, and always the few leaders I spoke to are kind of implementing a lot of these ideas, and they're working with clients all along the way, right, to determine what's worthwhile, what's not, because you don't want to go invest everything and try to make something that's really great and the clients don't end up valuing it. So make sure you bring the clients on that journey as well. But definitely, as Hilda mentioned earlier, this is not for everyone, right? Some clients are going to like this, some clients are not going to like this. But I think in terms of a return on investment, some asset managers feel that quarter of their clients using this is already a positive, because they are creating that benchmark. And I think from in the institutional client perspective, if they start seeing that from a few of their managers, they might be asking other managers who don't have it, oh, we can do this over here, why can't you guys do that? So again, it's about offering more. And then on the back end, it's probably the final point here is, which is really echoes what Ian was saying, is around the analytics, right? The behavior analytics, to be able to understand your clients a little bit better. Because if you offer a compelling offering and you can do a lot more, there's a lot more data you collect on what they're clicking on, what kind of performance they're looking at, when do they come in, when the performance has come down, when the market has certain events, what kind of thought leadership they're clicking on. Maybe they're looking more at ESG data where you have on the portal. So again, all that information can be collected on the back end for the asset manager. So it's also evaluating the value is to the client, but there's also value for the asset manager to know the client a little bit better and service them in a they can, you can probably link this to physical relationships, right? So now your clients keep logging on because of this market event. You can just ring them up and say, hey, you want to have a chat, because you might be worried. So again, there's a lot of things that can be that are quite attractive within the portal that can be implemented. It's just about, again, working out what that might be for your client base in particular.
Thank you very much.
Can I just?
Yeah, yes, please.
Just to follow up on what Paul was saying there, because I think that's a really important point. And one of the things that we're seeing more recently, we've actually started working with one of our clients that doesn't have a digital portal at the moment. And they've actually started to come to us and say, right, we want to look at what we want to be doing in that space, but we don't want to just go full investment just yet. So we're kind of employing some of the strategies that we do from a product management perspective, using kind of lean and kind of getting some mock-ups and prototypes out there that they're taking out to their end customers, finding which tools that those clients are finding valuable, and then we're bringing that in so that we can make sure that the portal that ends up being the one that they end up delivering is something that actually is really compelling for their end customers. So kind of using some of these techniques that come from the product management space as well, from some of the ones pioneered in Silicon Valley, some of those could really help with kind of driving some new and interesting ways of getting a portal that not only is there and creating a good experience, but also really answering the needs of your customer base.
Thank you very much there, Ian. Hilda, I'm going to come to you with this third question. I see we've got some fantastic questions coming in, so please do keep them going. In the interest of time, I will continue for our set questions so we can make sure we get through the polls as well. And I'll come back to any questions that we miss towards the end. So Hilda, I'd like to come to yourself here. And before I do, actually, sorry, Hilda, if I come to yourself, how are you improving your client's digital experience?
So we're always gathering feedback directly, from sales, client service, and also, from our clients directly, either through surveys or qualitative focus groups, as well as testing ideas and concepts with them. And so this is an important part of our process of getting feedback, directly from different teams internally, as well as directly from our clients. And what we've understood from our clients and the future of our client base, which I kind of mentioned in the first question, is we've been looking at delivering the self-service proposition. At the minimum, we want all our clients to be able to have access to data, content, documents, tools. We want to personalize the experience for them, and that means allowing them to custom build reports, pick the topics and themes they're interested in receiving. We want them to contact us to be able to exchange documents, and Paul mentioned it, the whole kind of onboarding KYC sort of proposition, being able to sign documents online. So we've been kind of looking at that in that kind of that proposition of self-service, being able to get our thought leadership from our website or through different channels, whether it's kind of social media or email as well. So the whole sort of improving of our clients' digital experience. Again, I want to stress that it's a combination of the digital experience, complements the analog experience, and it will only sort of augment, enrich it, and improve it and transform the total overall digital experience. I think the caution is we don't want to go digital all the way. We want to, and I think it's unique to our industry as well, is that we have that digital and analog world that complements one another.
Thank you. Ian, your thoughts on the same question of how clients' digital experience is generally being improved?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've covered quite a lot of the points through some of the questions already. I think it's worth reiterating the kind of the self-service, the empowerment, being able to kind of put more tools in the hands of the end users directly so that they can give you more direct feedback, even if it's not necessarily witting feedback, shall we say. And then also the kind of the more data that you can push through digital channels in a lot simpler way, a lot quicker way. You can learn, you can then refactor that data, but more in the hands of users in a much more, say, elegant way, and give them the data and the information they're really looking for. I think the other thing from our perspective, particularly from kind of as a technology company coming into this one, I think one of the key things that we focus on is really the UX side of things, which sometimes, historically, I think has been lost in the way that portals work. It hasn't really been a particular focus. So you've ended up with users logging into these tools that, as Paul was mentioning, don't provide a lot of value. They just kind of document repositories. And then on top of that, they're a little bit cumbersome. They're not particularly enjoyable to work with. So they don't really want to log back into it. It's not making it's not creating an environment that they want to play in or want to work with. So being able to provide a kind of clean UX, an interesting site that people don't have to kind of learn every time that they come into it, really makes them a much more compelling digital experience that people want to come back to, rather than something that they kind of use once and then never really come back to.
Thank you very much there, Ian. So we're going to come on to our next, to our second poll question, and we're going to keep this up on screen while the audience has a chance to answer. So launching the poll now, and Hilda, you'll be able to answer that one as well if you want to add your thoughts to this question of what are the key factors that will drive the firm to invest in a digital portal. So if you'd like to answer those, and I'll leave that up for a few seconds while everyone has a chance to do so. And as said before, please do put forward your questions in the Q&A area. I will be coming back to those. We have about half an hour to go of this debate, so we're doing good time to get through our questions. I'm sure we'll be able to come back to a few from the audience. I'll give that another 10 seconds just while they're coming in very quickly. I won't share the results until we have lots of results in, so as to not influence anyone. As I can see, there is one option that is really coming out strong at the moment. Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right, ending poll, countdown over. So sharing the results. So it looks as though the subject of empower investors to access information when they want it and how they want it. So yeah, let's go to Hilda on this answer here. Hilda, your thoughts? Does this surprise you at all?
No, not at all. Actually, it's exactly as what I thought, and in fact, not surprising at all. Again, this is what we've been discussing. The last for the last 20 minutes. It's all about what Ian said, empowering, our investors, our clients to be able to get what they want, whenever they want, anytime, during the day. I think we didn't talk about the time aspect. So it's not just the working hours. We're in a working sort of environment now where we've got a lot more flexibility in terms of our hours. And so it's all about sort of the empowerment, the self-service aspect of it, how they want it. So the custom building that we've been discussing, how they exchange documents, they want to push things back to us. They want documents from us. All of that can be done really quickly and easily. So not surprised at all by the answer.
Fantastic. Ian, any thoughts from yourself on this?
I mean, yeah, I completely agree with this one. And I think when you look at it as well, it's probably the answer that leads into certainly the two above it and potentially the bottom one as well. It's if you can get these tools out there that empower users, your differentiation comes pretty much automatically. Your retention comes with that as well. So it just makes it easier for you to achieve on some of your other goals within your organization by just giving users more access to it. And then, of course, you get the better analytics because you understand what it is that they want to see, what they want to work with. So yeah, it makes complete sense to me.
Okay, thank you. And Paul, any thoughts you might add to Ian and Hilda's there?
Yeah. So in terms of, I guess, comparing to what we found in a similar kind of question, I think the firms that we only asked this to firms to actually work planning to invest or had a portal. So this results might be of those who don't actually have a portal, but we found that competitive differentiation was an important factor, as well as the initiative being part of a wider digital transformation. At the firm, they're looking at different projects across the different investment life cycles. So they see client reporting isn't that opportune moment to invest in the client reporting portal, for example. But just in general, I think that it's one of the reasons why people tend not to invest, right? And they're like, oh, shall we invest the money or not? It's the question. It's client demand, client retention. Linking it to, I guess, hard revenue-based kind of metrics, right? It's quite hard to link client service to that, and I think that's a big struggle for many firms when trying to kind of justify that investment. So that's why I think we see client retention a bit lower, and this is the results of the survey also suggest that. But I think some firms have attempted to do that through client surveys. More periodic client surveys, looking at how they actually impact on a mandate that might have been in danger. I had worked with asset manager maybe just quite a number of years ago, but they did launch a client survey just to do this fact, trying to ask him to rate all different elements and try to link it to the happiness of the client, net promoter scores, all that kind of metrics that you might want to capture. But again, for most of the industry, that's not being done. It's just, that ad hoc feedback from clients about, oh yeah, client service was good, but never trying to quantify that. So you never really can, quantify the value of client service and client reporting. So I think that's why that's a little bit lower, but no doubt, obviously the benefits are around being able to offer clients the ability to self-serve, which is, one of the key points of having this model in the first place.
Wonderful. Thank you very much there, Paul. So a couple of comments that have come in, I think, really resonate to this fourth question. So Niels Hubener was asking the question about, isn't it more a question of speaking the language and talking about the subject that the clients would understand? David Masters has said, how do you make clients comfortable with the idea of their data being on new technology such as the cloud, and if it's secure? I think this very much comes to our fourth question that we've got here, which, Ian, I'll be starting with yourself, about what are the key considerations when building the business case for digital portals?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I think that last poll kind of had the second answer really kind of leading into that a little bit as well, where it's aligning with core business strategy in terms of the digital transformation really helps when you're trying to kind of get something like this approved and put the business case together. So it was quite gratifying to see that come in as number two, because if you can align with those kind of C-suite priorities and get a digital transformation to be at the kind of the center of your client experience strategy, then that's going to make your business case a lot more compelling. I think it also leads into what Paul has been saying as well, in terms of making sure you've got the right metrics to be able to measure against. If you're entirely measuring your kind of client communications in terms of how many errors, how fast you're getting those communications out, things like that, that's not necessarily going to give you the right metrics to justify investing into a digital platform. So it may be worth looking more holistically and start saying, right, how are we going to be improving the client experience? What metrics are we going to be using to judging that? And then using that as the benchmark to justify the different technologies that help support those changes. And then I think from a technology perspective, you can also start to look now at what's available out there on the marketplace. The tools that were created 10 years ago are way behind in terms of the technology. And with that comes the cost reductions that come with the newer tools. You can either get tools that do the same thing for kind of half the price, or you can get tools for the same price that do 5 times the functionality. So there's a lot more out there in the marketplace that can justify an investment into these kind of tools as a way to try and find new ways to differentiate and to improve that client experience.
Thank you very much. Hilda, your thoughts here on building the business case for digital portals?
Absolutely agree with Ian completely. It has to be for us, if we want to be a client-first organization, we need to be reactive, but also proactive based on client feedback, ideas, internal feedback and ideas from our sales, marketing, client service team. But I think the key thing is we don't want to solve the universe of challenges in one go. And Ian has, mentioned that early on. It's can we focus on the top 3, or maybe that's just one problem we need to solve. And so we just focus on that problem. And so build the business case around, solving that particular problem. We need to do user testing, usability testing, we need client feedback, test the ideas. And then overall, we need to also prove that we're saving time, saving costs, being more productive. And again, it really depends on what we're trying to solve, right? If you're using a digital portal as a virtual sales room, does it contribute to revenue? If we're using it for custom built reporting, does it save time? Does it make us more productive? Does it make the client more productive? So all of these things help to build the business case. But I think the important thing is let's not try and solve the universe of challenges in one go. Let's just focus on and prioritize and focus on the top 3 or just the one problem we want to solve, and let's do it really well that way.
Excellent. We've had a question come in, which I'll ask to you now. Hilda, if I may start with yourself on this one, because it's very interesting. If every asset manager has a digital client portal, are clients really going to want to log in to each one separately? Would they not just want one platform to view all their investments holistically and have interaction at their level? What's your thoughts on this audience question?
Yeah, great question. I actually don't have the answer for that. I think that I can give you my point of view, and again, if you kind of learn from the retail banking industry, right, where it's sort of headed to, and it's taken a long time, it's taken 10, 20 years. And, today, if you don't have online banking, you're really nowhere, really. It's like a minimum. And I think that this is where we're heading with asset management, right? So, at the minimum, we need to be doing this, and this. So, we've already done the automation of fact sheets, and fund documents. Now we are looking at automating, client reports. Now we're looking at client portal. So I think eventually it will be a given, that you have all of these things. And eventually, yes, there will be the question, I don't want to go to the website, because I've got to go into so many different websites. But we do that with retail banking. We go into different websites. And we can see also in retail banking that, some of the high street banks have got, aggregation as well. Who's using it? So I think it's a little bit of, wait and see. Things will change, and we need to be a combination of being reactive and proactive. We need to be looking at feedback from clients, and maybe it's about joining an external portal, aggregation portal, and be a partner of that. So I don't really have the answers, and I think that it's about clients do expect certain things as a given. That started with the fact sheets, automated fact sheets. On websites, the question is, do people actually go to our websites again? But you have to have it this, you need to have it. And so it's the same with portals, right? So we're asking our clients to do certain things on our website. They can access documents, exchange documents, do onboarding, KYC, the entire client journey. So they will use it, but I think over time, we'll be forced to think of different things. And if aggregation does come into it, then we have to think of that as well. So that's my view at the moment. It's, we have to be both proactive and reactive. We need to be able to meet some of the demands of our clients, but we also have to think about those that don't want it. So we have that omni-channel experience.
Thank you very much there, Hilda. Paul, any response to what Hilda's said there on this question about whether clients are really going to want to log into each one separately? Do you have any sense from your research?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, we've been covering this space for quite a while, and that has been a common kind of, I guess, point against investing in a really nice portal. Clients obviously have, maybe some clients have 20 asset managers as they're managing their mandates. So, but I think that's again, in a perfect world, and we kind of suggested in one of our research pieces actually, is that every asset owner has their own portal, right, where all the asset managers upload the data and it's there for them to review and everything. But the fact is, a lot of institutional asset owners don't have the money for this, right? They don't have this technology in place. Maybe on the consultant side they do, but on the asset owner side directly, it's not feasible at this very moment in time. And until obviously we get to a stage where there's like open API banking, for example, I think Hilda was referring to there, where data can be shared across, that's freely. I mean, that's just not an environment that we can live in at the moment. So to get the data, and I guess also portals themselves are not just a place where you can go to get stuff. Portals can also send data to other people, right, through APIs in the back end. Instead of sending like a flat file over, you can send API and call it and make it much more convenient. That's also a function of a interactive portal. So again, no matter what sophistication of the end client, whether they have a back end, a portal to receive that type of information, you're able to send that. If you have a client just wants an Excel file, you can send that. If a client still wants a physical report, we talk to some managers who have invested in this interactive portal, right? And they have clients who log in all the time, and they have clients who just want a paper-based report sent to them at the end of the month, and that's what they want. But it's it's about being able to service all those customers. But again, it's you're creating new value based on the interactive portal, but the expectation shouldn't be that you have to log in all the time. All clients log in all the time. It's setting a realistic expectation of which clients will. And at the same time, accepting the fact that 25% maybe, one asset manager I spoke to said 25% of clients logging in. That's great. So, I'm just going to leave it there. But it's definitely a consideration. But I don't think we're in a state where the institutional asset owner, all the types, the foundations, the endowments, pension funds have that capability on their side to be able to handle that at this very stage. So the asset manager needs to step up and deliver that.
Excellent. Thank you very much there, Paul. So we're going to come to our third poll before I'll put the last audience question to our panel. So this question of, do you believe traditional PDF client reporting will reach the end of its life cycle within the next 3 years? So please do vote on that while we go into our last question that we have, that I'll be starting with Ian on. So Ian, your thoughts here. The recent survey found that nearly 2/3 of respondents believe that there will always be a place for PDF reporting, even if it takes a backseat to digital reporting in the future. In your view, does this indicate a disconnect in the industry about what the expectations are for a digital customer experience?
I mean, I don't think I necessarily fully disagree. I think PDF certainly for the short term is going to be around for certainly for the next 5 years, in my view. So you can guess what I just answered on that particular poll that just came up. But I do think that we should be careful to kind of overstate the the lack of innovation or anything within the asset management industry. A lot of clients and prospects that I've been and spoken to, asset managers out there, are doing a lot of different things in the digital space. There's a lot of different ideas, whether it's kind of building single client views that builds a kind of nice cockpit for relationship managers to understand what have clients been doing, where are their interests, bringing in information from websites, from portals, from reporting, from presentation responses, all of these kind of things to create a nice one place to see everything about the client, whether it's digital reporting and being able to put digital reports out of there, which give a nice innovative way to show some of this data and interact with it through presentations or what other materials, and even into the portals and other things that we've been talking about here. So there is a lot of innovation out there. There's people trying different things, learning from it and doing things. It's probably just not as widespread as we'd hope it would be for the industry, for the amount of money that we could potentially invest into this. And the real fear that I have for some of the people who aren't investing in this at the moment is there's an opinion that it's like, well, we can let the first responders kind of go through and get or the early adopters go through and get the information out there, work out what it is that we should be doing, and then we'll just copy them and catch up to them. But there are certain things that are going to be coming up, certain technologies that you're just not going to be able to catch up like that. So if you come into things like machine learning and AI, those require vast amounts of data across multiple different areas, across lots of different channels that you're interacting with. And then to be able to use those technologies effectively, you have to have that data lake and that subset or that amount of data available for you to find the patterns, to find the pieces of information that you can then use to target people and to create the next best client experience. So I think without kind of investing into this and getting some of that data, getting some of that information now, you're going to find that you not only start behind, but you continually struggle to catch up as people have more of this data, more of this information, and just find it easier to innovate using those technologies.
Thank you very much. Paul, I'll come to yourself second on this question, but before you give your answer, just to remind our audience that the Q&A function is there to put your questions in. Hopefully we'll have time in the last 10 minutes to go over a further one question at least. But Paul, your thoughts here. The recent survey found that nearly 2/3 of respondents believe there'll always be a place for PDF reporting. Does this indicate a disconnect in the industry about what the expectations are for a digital customer experience?
No, not. I don't think so. I think it's just an acceptance that every client has different needs, and there's going to be a duality that exists. There's going to be the digital, static type reporting for PDFs, and it's going to be the more interactive type, and they're going to coexist for quite a number of years to come. Some managers said that maybe after 5 years' time. This time the question was phrased in the next 3 years, but maybe 5 to 10 years that might see that the digital interactive kind of reporting take off, as in like really take off in terms of being the majority. But in terms of the next 3 years, it's hard to see, especially when you think about the current infrastructure at many asset management firms at the moment, who are, I would say, some still struggle with that traditional creating of PDFs even. So to expect them to deliver a digital experience that somehow is going to overtake the PDF within the next 3 years is unlikely. So I think this is just a result of where we are right now, this answer. And I think there's a belief in the industry that digital will take a more important role in the future. But at the same time, also kind of echoing Ian's is that don't wait too long, because many of the leaders that I kind of talked about and referenced, they're the largest managers usually, and they talk about how this has been a multi-year project for them, and they're investing and rolling out slowly, as Hilda recommended, right? Having those small goals, maybe specific clients, maybe specific regions first to see what the reaction is, what do they want, and then maybe roll out even larger as you go along. But that's been taken 2-3 years already. So if you're not starting now and you think that's going to be the majority case in the next 3 years, I think you need to consider your strategy and really get going. Just because if the large asset managers are kind of having trouble, not having trouble, but just taking so long. Because obviously this is new, right? Innovation is always going to take a little time, but you don't want to be left behind and trying to catch up where it might take 2-3 years, you could be losing clients, just because, as we know, competing on things like price, competing on the type of strategies, asset classes. A lot of managers have become broader in terms of what they offer. They have, the prices have come down, and it's hard to see them go down further. And so how else do you complete? You complete on client's experience. So that's kind of the message of the report. Just make sure that you engage with your clients. We have spoken to some asset managers who have specifically gone out to the clients, but they have a narrow client base, and they're like, we asked them, we really tried to engage, and it turns out it was not for us. Maybe that's fine. But then I talked to other managers who've done the same thing, who have a broader client base, and they're like, oh, we have so many different answers, but we still want to cater for everyone, so we're going to invest. So again, it's about really involving your clients in the decision making, and that has not been done a lot, from what I've seen in a kind of strategic project, with a goal in mind of really finding out what clients want when it comes to client experience and client journey.
Okay, thank you very much there, Paul. To our audience, I see 2/3 have voted in this latest poll. If you haven't already, please do go and vote now. I'll come to Hilda with her response to Paul and Ian's questions, comments, and then I'll release the poll results. So please do answer the poll if you haven't already. Hilda, your thoughts here on whether we're seeing a disconnect in the industry about what expectations are for digital customer experience?
So in terms of PDF reporting or PDF?
Within PDF, yes. So on the question of,
right.
yes,
I totally agree with Paul and Ian. It's here to stay for now. We know we want to give our clients choice. So the neatly packaged, click the button, you have a nicely formatted document is here to stay at the moment. And, for those of us who, want to be more sustainable, the online version, that you can just look at and view it. So absolutely, I think the PDF reports are here to stay. I don't know that it will, let's see where we are in 5 years, 10 years, but it's here to stay.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Well, we've got about 4 minutes left, so I will release the poll now and share those results. So as you can see, the dominating result here was that no, there'll always be room for PDF client reporting, but it'll take a backseat to digital communications and reporting. We've got a couple of questions that have come in from the audience, so I'm going to wrap up their questions into your response to the poll. So there's been one from Nils about whether we'll see video reporting coming through, which is a really interesting idea. And then also, what are the top 3 things that the panelists would be recommending they base their strategy on going forward for digital reporting? Hilda, your thoughts there, wrapping that in. Your thoughts on the response that there'll always be a room for PDF, but it'll take a backseat to digital communications, and thinking about video-based reporting and what the top priorities would need to be.
Love the idea of video reporting. Probably going to get hell from compliance, but it's something that we need to explore. I mean, these innovations are here, and it's worked in other sectors, in retail banking, so yeah, I think we need to look at these. I think we get a lot of challenges, just because I think, again, what I've kind of alluded to at the beginning, how as a culture, in investment management, we need to kind of break out of it. We need to sort of really move up that digital maturity curve. So I think that, yes, absolutely. I think that there will be room for, digital innovation like video banking. What was the other question again? No?
Yeah, so it was on video-based reporting, and what would the top 3 priorities be? Yeah, so you may want to just summarize those top 3.
Top 3 priorities. I think, for us, it's always about the client experience, obviously, but where, what is our priority in terms of, solving the client experience? And it's based on feedback, based on testing, based on surveys and things like that. And we can decide what our top 3 is. And it does change, every year. Last year it was about, virtual events, right? This year might be something else. So really, I think you've just got to, continually sort of evolve, and be kind of proactive. You need to listen to feedback. You need to test ideas. Then you get your top 3.
Thank you very much. Ian, yeah, your thoughts on this poll and about digital communications being front and centre. What's your thoughts on the poll and adding in those questions from Nils and the anonymous attendee about fund-based reporting as part of digital and the top 3 priorities? About a minute response.
Okay, sure. I mean, the poll's pretty much in line with what we were just saying, right? It's PDFs will be around. We'll continue to work on those ones, but I think the value of digital will start to shine through a little bit more over the next few years, and people will demand more of that digital experience, and clients and asset managers will need to be able to offer that. In terms of the other points, I mean, I agree entirely with Hilda in terms of the top 3 things are gonna vary from asset manager to asset manager. Our experience is everyone we go to has a slightly different priority. I think I would say, looking in aggregate, what do people have the biggest response to, or what do they want to see more of? It's very much the self-service and the analytics are always the 2 that come out on the top. It's like, I want to give my clients more control, and then I want to know what they're doing off of the back of that. And those 2 in concert typically come out as kind of the 2 things that our clients are asking for. And then the others tend to be kind of different tools, like how can I simplify some of my security routines with my clients to make that a little bit more streamlined. So I know through a digital portal who they are. I don't have to go through massive security processes to exchange contracts, do things like that. Or how can I get other types of information, messages, things like that. Those tend to be the things that follow that up in terms of key functional asks.
All right, thank you very much. I see we've hit 10 o'clock, so we're at the end. Just lastly to our audience, thank you very much for joining us. The research report from SimCorp in collaboration with AAT will be sent around, so please do look out for that. But otherwise, I'd like to extend a thanks to our panel here, Hilda Tingle, BNP Paribas Asset Managers, with Paul Sinfnot of AAT Group, and last but not least to Ian Rees of SimCorp. To our audience, thank you very much for joining us, and have an excellent day ahead. Goodbye all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.